Hi everybody, it's Ben here from Gwinear Angling again, back with another video, and the topic for today is marine worms, sea worms, whatever you want to call them, the worms that we use for bait in sea fishing. So you're talking about your lugworm, your ragworm, that sort of thing. We're going to talk about what they are, why they're important, and most importantly how you can put them on your hooks. So that's the topic for today. We're going to dig straight into it. Let's go. So marine worms for UK sea fishing, you're looking at sort of two major groups really, the ragworms and the lugworms. Ragworm, you've got three species that are of particular interest to sea anglers. We supply two of those. We supply king rag, and we can also do harbour rag to order too. King rag is probably the most popular bait of the two. It's a larger worm. It looks like a terrestrial centipede in appearance. It's got appendages all down the side of either side of its body. It's got a central vein that runs right down the animal, and it has a pair of pincers like an earwig or something like that that can make people nervous. But really, unless it's a particularly big one, and king ragworm do get up to 4 foot long, although they're pretty rare these days, then the pincers are really nothing to worry about. They ain't going to hurt you. This harbour ragworm is a little bit more of a specialised bait, typically used by people fishing for mullet species, flounders, match anglers looking to bag a lot of small fish, that sort of thing. It has a very highly mobile tail. They lash about a lot. People call them maddies for that reason, and they're really popular with small fish anglers, or sometimes for winter fishing as well. When it's a little bit more difficult to get a bite, those sort of lashing tails of harbour ragworm can trigger a bite when your more sort of scent orientated baits can't. So it's a useful bait. Lugworm, you've got two different species that we keep in the shop. You've got your blow lugworm, which we supply fresh. This is it looks more like a common earthworm than a centipede like the rag does, although the lug does have little bristles along the side of it and a set of gills that are sort of about 2/3 down from the head on the animal. It has a tail, which typically when you dig a blow lugworm, it'll be full of sand, and the digger will put that in water so that the animal purges as much of the sand as possible, although they always tend to have a little bit of sand left in the tail. Some people like that as they believe it's a good source of scent. So a blow lug is very scent orientated bait, by the way. It's got quite a thin skin, so really it's you could best describe it as like a sack of juice that you want to control the leakage of. It's really attractive to fish and a really good bait for all sorts. Black lugworm is a bigger relative of the blow lug. It's a different animal entirely really. It's got much tougher skin. When the digger digs black lug, they will typically gut them straight away. So that means that all the innards of the animal are gone, and you're just left with the sort of body of the creature, which is a lot tougher and more rubbery than a blow lug. These are typically frozen, and when you defrost them, they'll be quite limp and pliable, although still relatively tough. Like they're hard to rip apart. Most people will lash these to hooks or lash them to another sort of bait like squid. It's a really popular bait in the winter, black lug. I would say that is its major usage. If I was fishing in the summer, I would always go for blow lug over black lug, but in the winter, I'd be happier to fish with black lug. It can be really good there. So what sort of fish are most attracted to marine worms? Well, you could say broadly that it tends to be the more omnivorous species than the out-and-out predatory ones. In this country, you're looking at fish like bass, cod, flatfish, bream. The sort of fish that people highly prize for the table are often really attracted to worms, and that's probably a good reason for making them a key part in your armoury. They'll catch you some of the best eating fish you can get. Say, for example, you wanted a Dover sole, you'd be using some sort of worm bait to catch that fish because you're unlikely to catch it on anything else. That's a good example of how important worms can be for you. For the most part, a fish species that will eat a ragworm will also eat a lugworm. You'll quite often find that there's not much to choose from between them. Although if you're fishing for, say, flatfish, you might find on some days lugworm outfishes rag, and on other days rag outfishes lug. It can be like that. But some other species you'll find have a strong preference for one over the other. Say, for example, in most regions, cod will favour lug over rag, and almost everywhere, pollock will favour rag over lug. It can be like that too. So if you're targeting a particular fish, find out first what that fish is most likely to eat and buy your bait accordingly. So let's have a look at a few popular options for presenting ragworm. The first one we'll do is just the sort of classic presentation, just the ragworm threaded up the hook with a little bit of tail left dangling. This is a popular presentation like you might use for, say, flatfish or something like that. So basically what we're going to do, pinch the head of the animal so it sort of spits out its lips a little bit, and just insert the hook in that hole, and then gently, carefully thread the worm up the hook. As the head comes towards the eye, take your finger and thumb, just pop the head over the eye, and that will help to secure the worm in place. Continue threading, can be quite difficult, they often get very wriggly at this stage, and then pop the hook out with some of the tail remaining, and you'll see that's a nice straight bait with a very attractive tail. A good tip here is that if you want to keep that tail intact so it continues to wiggle on the bottom, is give that rag a bit of a dip in salt water before you cast it out, and then it'll make the animal tense up and that tail has a much better chance of making it to the bottom in one piece. A way that you could add some attraction to this is maybe to head hook another ragworm on the bottom. I'd probably use a smaller rag than this. If I had a variety of sizes of worms, I'd pick out some of the smaller ones and then head hook them on the bottom. You just put the hook in the head, whoops, drop that, hook through the head and then run it out a little bit, pop it out like that. You see the whole animal there, that's really, really attractive. You could fish a bait like this with a small ragworm, of course, with something like a pop-up bead or something like that, and that would be a really super attractive bait. Yeah, good stuff. So now we'll look at a slightly different presentation. Say, for example, you were spinning for mullet or fishing for black bream that really like to peck the tails off worms without getting hooked. You might decide you were going to go with something where you're leaving nothing out of the shank. So again, going through the head, thread the worm up the hook until you, whoops, wind trying to take my newspaper, up the hook until the head pops over the knot like that, and then just nip that tail off. And there you can see, that's just the body of the worm with the hook exposed. And the idea with this is anything trying to eat this is just going to get the hook straight away. And that's a really effective way of dealing with fish that try and peck your tails off. Another really effective presentation that you can use with smaller ragworm or harbour ragworm even is to just head hook a bunch of them. Take a smaller hook with a shorter shank, maybe a wide gape sort of pattern, and just head hook some so you've got a bunch of wiggling tails there. That can be a really effective bait too. So now we're moving on to lugworm. And like I said before, your presentation options are quite a bit more limited here than they are with ragworm. Really what you're looking at here with blow lug is a little sack of juice. And you don't want to make too many holes in that. You want to keep the leakage of the bait controlled so that the fish has the best possible chance of homing in on it. Probably the best way of mounting it to make as few holes as possible is to use a baiting needle, and that's exactly what I've got here. Now I like to mount my lugworm so that the head is at the point of the hook. The head is where the most juice is. It's just the way a lot of fish take their prey head first, so I've found it's the most logical way for me to do it. You might prefer to mount it the other way, it's up to you. But what I'm going to do, you can see the tail here, the little, what would typically be full of sand. I'm just going to pierce that about halfway down the tail. Then carefully run the needle all the way up through the body, being super careful not to exit before I get to the head. And there we go. I'm just going to nip that bit of tail off there, I don't need it. Push it up, put your hook in the hole of the bait needle and transfer the worm from the needle onto the hook. And you can see that is mounted perfectly with very little juice leaking out of it. When we cast it out, it'll go on the bottom and the juice will gradually leak out of that and give a hunting fish that's caught the scent of it the best possible chance of finding it. And that really is the way that I like to present blowlugs. Some people will mount it head first and leave a little bit of tail flapping. I find that a little bit counterproductive because I think for the most part your tail is breaking off before it's even getting to the bottom, and when it's on the bottom, I imagine the fish are just nipping it off anyway. For me, the real attraction of lugworm is not so much in the visual aspect, but in the scent that it produces. So there you go, blow lugworm. If you wanted to, if you were fishing a big bait for a flatfish, you could thread that right up and add a ragworm as well. That's a really good combination. You can also add other lugworms to it and make a bigger bait. Sometimes I've even taken bait elastic and elasticed it all together. It makes a very untidy package, but if you're having trouble with things like crabs and prawns on the bottom pecking off your blow lug, that will buy you an extra few minutes a cast, I find. So that's a worthy little tactic to keep in your back pocket. Another area you can give some thought to is how to protect your bait when you're casting it out. We talked about dipping the tails of the ragworm in the water, but what about when you're clipping up your baits? I used to find that the best kind of bait clip for presenting a worm bait was a breakaway impact shield. It's got kind of a mushroom disc and it protects the worm from the air pressure coming up the line, tends to stop it blowing right up the line and over the top of the hook, which can happen. Another way to mitigate against that is to use a bait stop, something like a little neoprene bait stop with a sequin, and slide all that down, trap that worm in place. If you do want to use something like an imp or a lead with a bait clip on it, that's the best way of making sure that your worm doesn't end up halfway up your trace and the fish is biting a piece of line rather than your hook. Now with blow lug and king rag in particular, they are fresh baits, and when you buy them from us they'll come wrapped in newspaper. If you want them to last, then what you need to do is look after them. You need to change that newspaper every day or two, keep them somewhere cool like in a fridge, and you want to go through those packets of worm every day, picking out any dead ones or ones that are starting to look a bit sad. Make sure that the environment's nice for the other worms. Say for example a blow lug has blown and it's leaked blood in the newspaper. You need to change that newspaper, get the old worm out of there and get the remaining worms into fresh newspaper as quickly as possible. Do that, look after your worms and they should last a bit for you. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a like and hit subscribe. We really do appreciate everyone that supports us. If you've got any questions, anything you'd like to ask, just pop it in the comments below, or even better, come and see us in the shop here. It's the #1 place in the area for fresh bait, quality tackle and sound local advice. See you in there.